The gym's air reeked of sweat and iron, but his laugh cut through it like sunlight through fog. I was halfway through a deadlift, gritting my teeth, when I saw him lean, confident, his hazel eyes catching mine in the mirror. By the time I dropped the barbell, my heart was pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with the weight. This was Seattle, 2024, where the rain never stopped, and neither did the grind. Ethan Carter, was a 26-year-old graphic designer who lived for routine work. Gym. Sleep. Repeat. The gym was my sanctuary. A place to drown out the noise of a city that felt too big and a life that felt too small. But that day, something shifted. His name was Lucas Reed, and he wasn't just another guy spotting weights. He was a spark, and I was kindling waiting to catch fire. It started with a nod, then a joke about my form. "You're going to snap your spine if you keep arching like that," he said, smirking as he adjusted my stance. His hand grazed my shoulder, and I swear the room got 10 degrees hotter. Lucas was a personal trainer, 28, with a laugh that could disarm anyone and a past he didn't talk about. We fell into an easy rhythm workouts together, protein shakes after, and conversations that stretched longer than either of us planned. He'd grown up in a small town in Oregon. He told me one night over cheap burgers, where being openly gay wasn't just frowned upon, it was dangerous. Left at 18, he said, eyes distant. Never looked back. I wanted to ask more, but something in his voice told me to wait. I wasn't out. Not really. My parents, back in Boise, thought I was focused on my career. My co-workers at the design firm knew me as the quiet guy who sketched in the break room. But with Lucas, I didn't have to explain the parts of myself I'd buried. He saw them anyway. One evening, after a grueling leg day, he invited me to his place for a movie. Just Netflix. "Man," he said, but his grin promised more. I said yes, ignoring the voice in my head screaming that this was a bad idea. His apartment was a small, cluttered space in Capitol Hill, with mismatched furniture and a fridge full of energy drinks. We watched half of some action flick before he turned to me, his knee brushing mine. "You ever feel like you're running from something, even when you're standing still?" he asked. I nodded, my throat tight. Then he kissed me, and the world stopped. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a confession, a question, a promise. I kissed him back, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. But nothing that perfect lasts without a fight. The next morning, as we lay tangled in his sheets, his phone buzzed with a text that made his face go pale. "It's nothing," he muttered, but I saw the name Jake. An ex? Maybe. A threat? He wouldn't say, and I didn't push. Not then. Instead, we fell into a rhythm, gym sessions, late-night talks, stolen kisses in the locker room. Lucas started showing up at my place, cooking breakfast like he belonged there. Pancakes, eggs. Even my coffee started tasting better when he made it. It felt like love, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking, waiting to pull us apart. Weeks passed, and the texts kept coming. Lucas would glance at his phone, his jaw tight, and change the subject. I wanted to trust him, but doubt crept in like damp rot. One night, after a particularly brutal workout, I couldn't hold back. "Who's Jake?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. His eyes darkened, and for a moment, I thought he'd shut me out. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "He's my past," he said, "and he won't let go." That was all I got before he kissed me. Hard. Like he was trying to drown out the truth. I let him, because I was already too deep to turn back. The gym became our battleground, where sweat and stolen glances forged something unbreakable. Lucas taught me how to push past my limits, his hands steadying me through every rep, every doubt. But outside those walls, the world wasn't as kind, and Jake's shadow loomed larger every day. I started noticing things: Lucas checking his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, his laughter fading when certain notifications popped up. One night, at my apartment, he burned the bacon, a rare misstep for someone who cooked with such ease. "Sorry," he muttered, scraping the charred strips into the trash. "Just distracted." I wanted to press, but his eyes begged me to let it go. So I did, because I was falling harder than I'd ever thought possible. Seattle's gray skies mirrored the tension growing between us. We were in love. I knew it in the way he'd hum off-key while flipping pancakes, in the way he'd pull me close during late-night walks along the Puget Sound. But love doesn't erase secrets. One evening, as we sat on my couch, his phone lit up again. This time, I saw the message before he could hide it. "You can't run forever, Lucas." My stomach twisted. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice low but firm. Lucas stared at the floor, his hands clenched. "Jake's my ex," he said finally. "From Oregon. He didn't take the breakup well. He told me bits and pieces how Jake had been controlling, manipulative, how leaving him meant leaving everything Lucas knew. I thought I'd escaped," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But he found me." I reached for his hand, my heart aching for the fear in his eyes. "You're not alone anymore," I said. He squeezed my hand, but the weight of his past didn't lift. The next week, things escalated. I found a note slipped under my apartment door. "Tell him to call me." No signature, but I knew. My blood ran cold. Lucas was at the gym when I called him, my voice shaking. "He knows where I live," I said. There was a long pause before he answered. "I'm coming over." When he arrived, his face was a storm of guilt and anger. "This is my fault," he said. "I should have dealt with this." I wanted to scream that it wasn't his fault, that Jake was the problem, but words felt useless. Instead, I pulled him into a hug, holding on like he might vanish. We decided to confront the issue head-on. Lucas blocked Jake's number, changed his social media, even talked about moving to a new place. But Seattle wasn't big enough to hide forever. One night, as we left the gym, a figure leaned against a street lamp across the road. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a stare that cut through the dusk. Lucas froze. "That's him," he whispered. My heart pounded, but I stepped in front of Lucas, shielding him. "Stay away," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. Jake smirked, then turned and disappeared into the rain. That night, Lucas stayed at my place, And we didn't sleep. We talked until dawn. About fear, love, and the lives we wanted. I promised him we'd face this together. But deep down, I wondered if promises were enough. Fear has a way of rewriting love stories. Lucas and I were building something beautiful. But Jake's presence was a crack in the foundation, threatening to bring it all down. Every morning, as Lucas stirred eggs in my kitchen, I saw the strain in his eyes, and it killed me. We tried to keep things normal. Gym sessions, coffee runs, quiet nights watching the city lights from my balcony. But normal felt fragile, like a glass sculpture waiting for a tremor. Lucas was quieter now, his laughs less frequent. I caught him double-checking locks, glancing over his shoulder on walks. "I'm fine," he'd say when I asked, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I hated how Jake's ghost was stealing pieces of him. One afternoon, at a crowded cafe near Pike Place, Lucas finally opened up. Jake wasn't just controlling, he said, staring into his coffee. He'd show up at my old job, my friends' houses. He'd call my mom, tell her I was messed up for leaving him. My jaw clenched. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. He shrugged, his voice small. "Didn't want you to think I was weak." I reached across the table, grabbing his hand. "You're the strongest person I know," I said. He looked at me, eyes wet, and for a moment, we were untouchable. But reality doesn't care about moments. A week later, I got a call from my building manager. Someone had been asking about me, claiming to be a friend. I knew it was Jake. That night, Lucas and I sat down and made a plan. We'd go to the police, file a report, maybe get a restraining order. "I don't want you dragged into this," Lucas said, guilt lacing his words. "I'm already in it," I replied. "I love you." It was the first time I'd said it out loud. His eyes widened, then softened. "I love you too," he whispered, and we held each other like the world might break us apart. The police station was cold, clinical. The officer took our statement, but his tone was skeptical. "No direct threats. No proof," he said. "We'll keep an eye out." Lucas's shoulders slumped as we left. I wanted to scream, to demand they do more, but I knew it wouldn't help. Instead, I took Lucas's hand and said, "We'll figure this out." He nodded, but I could see the doubt creeping back. Days later, Jake upped the ante. I found my car's tires slashed outside the gym. A note tucked under the wiper. "You don't know him like I do." My hands shook as I showed it to Lucas. His face crumpled, and he sank to the curb, head in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," he said. "This is my mess." I knelt beside him, my voice fierce. "It's our mess now. We're not running." For the first time, I saw a spark of fight in his eyes. We weren't just surviving any more way, we're fighting for us. Love is a battlefield, but so is survival. Lucas and I were learning that the hard way. Our mornings in the kitchen now tinged with vigilance. Jake wasn't just a ghost anymore, was a storm. And we were bracing for impact. We started taking precautions. Lucas moved into my apartment, his belongings blending with mine, his gym bag by the door, his toothbrush next to mine. It should have felt like a victory. But it was necessity, not romance, driving the decision. We changed the locks, installed a cheap security camera, and avoided the gym at odd hours. Lucas stopped checking his phone obsessively, but I could tell he was still haunted. I keep waiting for him to show up, he admitted one night, his voice barely audible over the rain outside. I pulled him close, promising safety I wasn't sure I could deliver. Work became my escape. I buried myself in design projects, sketching logos until my hands cramped. But even there, Jake's shadow followed. One day, a coworker mentioned a weird guy asking about me at the front desk. My stomach dropped. I told Lucas that night, expecting him to panic. Instead, he got quiet, then said, "We need to end this." His voice was steel, a side of him I hadn't seen before. We decided to track Jake down, not to confront him, but to understand what he wanted. We started digging. Lucas shared what he knew: Jake's last name, his old haunts in Oregon, his social media habits. I scoured the internet, finding traces of Hema LinkedIn profile, a few vague posts on X about taking back what's mine. It was chilling, but it gave us something to work with. We hired a private investigator, a gruff ex-cop named Maria who didn't sugarcoat things. "This guy's obsessive," she said after a week. "He's been in Seattle for months, tracking you both." She showed us photos: Jake at a coffee shop we frequented, Jake outside my office. My blood ran cold, but Lucas's jaw tightened. "What's our next step?" he asked. Maria suggested a restraining order, but warned it might escalate things. We agreed to try anyway. The legal process was a slog: paperwork, court dates, waiting. Lucas and I clung to our routine, finding solace in small things: his pancakes, my terrible attempts at scrambled eggs, our shared laughter over bad TV. But the tension was always there, a low hum beneath every moment. One night, as we lay in bed, Lucas turned to me. "If this goes wrong, I want you to know you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." My throat tightened. "It won't go wrong," I said, but my voice shook. We were fighting for our future, but Jake was fighting for control, and I wasn't sure who'd win. The restraining order was a piece of paper, but it felt like a flimsy shield against Jake's obsession. Lucas and I tried to rebuild our rhythm, but every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside, reminded us he was still out there. Our love was a flame, burning bright but vulnerable to the wind. Maria, the investigator, kept us updated. Jake had been spotted near the gym again, but he was careful, staying just outside the legal boundary. "He's testing you," she said. "Stay sharp." Lucas took it harder than I did, his guilt resurfacing like a bruise that wouldn't heal. "I brought this into your life," he said one morning, his hands trembling as he poured coffee. I grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to meet my eyes. "You brought you into my life," I said. "That's worth everything." He nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering. We leaned on friends for support. My coworker Sarah, who'd guessed I was gay long before I admitted it, became our rock. She dropped by with takeout, cracking jokes to lighten the mood. "You two are disgustingly cute," she'd say, watching Lucas tease me about my cooking. But even her warmth couldn't erase the fear. One night, she stayed late, and we told her everything. "You need to live your lives," she said. "Don't let this guy steal your joy." Her words stuck with me. But living wasn't easy when every step felt watched. Then came the breaking point. I was leaving work late. The Seattle streets slick with rain. When I saw Jake, he was across the street, his face half hidden by a hood. But I knew it was him. My heart raced as I called Lucas. "Stay where you are," he said, his voice tight. "I'm coming." But before Lucas arrived, Jake approached, his voice low and venomous. "You think you can take him from me?" he said. I stood my ground, adrenaline surging. "He's not yours," I replied. "He never was." Jake's eyes narrowed, but he backed off when Lucas pulled up, tires screeching. We drove home in silence, the weight of the encounter crushing us. That night, Lucas broke down. "I can't keep doing this to you," he sobbed. "Maybe I should leave." The words hit like a punch. "No," I said, my voice fierce. "We're in this together. You don't get to give up." He looked at me, tears streaming, and nodded. We held each other until morning, the kitchen light casting soft shadows over us. We weren't just fighting Jake anymore, we're fighting for the life we'd built. The one where he cooked breakfast and I burned toast. The one where love was our defiance. Defiance became our armor. But even armor has cracks. Lucas and I were holding on. Our mornings in the kitchen, a quiet rebellion against Jake's shadow. But the closer we got, the more desperate Jake seemed to tear us apart. Maria's updates grew grimmer. Jake had violated the restraining order, lingering too close to my apartment. The police issued a warning, but it felt like chasing smoke. Lucas was fraying, his confidence replaced by a restless energy. He'd pace the apartment, checking windows, his hands never still. I tried to anchor him, cooking together, planning a future we both wanted to believe in. "Let's get out of Seattle," I said one night, half serious. "Somewhere new. Just us." He smiled, but it was thin. "I'd follow you anywhere," he said. "But I need to face this first." We decided to take control. Maria suggested a sting lured Jake into violating the order in a way that couldn't be ignored. It was risky, but we were out of options. We set it up at the gym, our old sanctuary. Lucas would train there alone, while Maria and I watched from a distance. The plan was simple: catch Jake in the act, get evidence, force the police to act. My stomach churned as Lucas walked into the gym. His shoulders squared, but his eyes haunted. It worked too well. Jake showed up, bold as ever, cornering Lucas near the lockers. I watched from Maria's car, my heart in my throat, as Jake's voice rose, sharp and accusing. "You think you can just walk away?" he shouted. Lucas stayed calm, but I could see his hands shaking. Maria recorded everything, her camera steady. When Jake grabbed Lucas's arm, I nearly bolted from the car, but Maria held me back. "Let it play out," she whispered. The gym staff intervened, and Jake fled, but we had what we needed. The footage was damning. The police arrested Jake the next day for violating the restraining order. Lucas and I sat in the station, his hand gripping mine like a lifeline. "It's over," I said, but he shook his head. "Not yet," he murmured. He was right. Jake was out on bail within hours, his lawyer claiming he was misunderstood. The system was failing us, but we weren't failing each other. That night, in the kitchen, Lucas made pancakes, his hands steadier than they'd been in weeks. "We're stronger than him," I said. He nodded, a spark of hope in his eyes. But hope is fragile, and Jake wasn't done. The arrest should have been a victory, but it felt like a pause in a war we didn't start. Lucas and I were surviving, our love a quiet act of resistance. But Jake's release on bail was a reminder that safety was an illusion. Every morning, as Lucas cooked, I watched him closer, memorizing the way he moved, terrified it could all be taken away. We tried to reclaim normalcy. Lucas went back to training clients, his charm returning in flashes. I poured myself into a new design project, a campaign for a local queer youth center. It felt good to create something meaningful, something that reminded me why we were fighting. But Jake's presence lingered. Maria warned us he'd been seen near Capitol Hill, too close for comfort. "He's spiraling," she said. "Desperate people do desperate things." Her words hung over us like a storm cloud. One night, Sarah threw a small party at her place, insisting we needed a break. We went, reluctant but craving connection. The room was warm, filled with laughter and music. And for a few hours, we were just Ethan and Lucas, two guys in love, dancing badly to 80s pop. Lucas pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "This is what I want," he whispered. "Us. Like this. Forever." I kissed him, the world fading away. But when we left, reality crashed back. A brick shattered my car window. A note tied to it, "You'll regret this." Lucas's face went white. I called Maria, who arrived in minutes. But Jake was gone. The police added the incident to Jake's file, but it wasn't enough for another arrest. Frustration burned in my chest. But Lucas was unraveling. "I should have stayed in Oregon," he said, his voice breaking. "None of this would have happened to you." I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. "You are my home," I said. "I'd rather face this than lose you." He cried then, raw and unguarded, and I held him until the tears stopped. We doubled down. Maria suggested we leave town for a while, let things cool off. We chose a cabin in the Cascades, a place to breathe, to plan. The drive was quiet, the mountains looming like silent protectors. In the cabin, we cooked together, laughed, made love by the fire. It felt like a glimpse of the life we could have. But as we packed to return, Lucas's phone pinged a photo of us, taken outside the cabin. Jake had found us. The message read, "I'm always watching." Fear clawed at my chest, but Lucas's eyes burned with something near resolve. "No more running," he said. We were done hiding. The cabin was supposed to be our refuge, but Jake's photo turned it into a cage. Lucas and I drove back to Seattle, the weight of his message pressing down on us. We weren't running anymore, but we were running out of time. Maria met us at my apartment, her face grim. He's escalating, she said, showing us more photosis at the gym, the cafe, even my office. Jake wasn't just watching. He was taunting us, daring us to break. Lucas's hands shook, but his voice was steady. I want to face him, he said. One last time. I hated the idea, but I saw the fire in his eyes. He needed this not just for us, but for himself. We planned it carefully. Maria arranged for police backup, and we chose a public park-neutral ground, crowded enough to be safe. Lucas would meet Jake, with Maria and me nearby, hidden. The police would be ready to act. My heart pounded as we set it up, but Lucas was calm, resolute. I need to take my life back, he said. I kissed him, pouring every ounce of love into it. You already have, I whispered. The park was alive with joggers and families, the sun cutting through Seattle's usual gray. Lucas stood by a fountain, his posture strong but his eyes nervous. Jake appeared, his face a mix of anger and desperation. You think you can replace me? He spat. Lucas didn't flinch. I'm not yours to replace, he said. I'm my own person, and I'm with Ethan now. Let me go? Jake's hands clenched, but before he could respond, the police moved in, cuffing him for violating the restraining order again. This time, the evidence was airtight. Maria's photos, the brick, the texts. Jake was gone. For good. The aftermath was quiet. Lucas and I went home, the silence heavy but hopeful. He cooked pancakes the next morning, his hands steady, his smile real. We did it, he said, and I nodded, my throat tight. We'd fought for our love and won, but the scars remained. We started therapy, both together and apart, rebuilding what Jake had tried to break. The gym became our sanctuary again, where we lifted weights and lifted each other. Friends like Sarah rallied around us, their support a reminder that love isn't just two people, it's a community. Months later, we moved to a new apartment, a fresh start. Lucas still cooked every morning, and I still burned the toast. But now, the kitchen was ours, untainted by fear. We weren't just surviving any more way, we're living, loving, building a future. One morning, as he slid a plate of eggs my way, I grabbed his hand. Marry me, I said. His eyes lit up, and he laughed. That same laugh that first caught me at the gym. Only if you promise to stop burning the toast, he teased. I didn't, but he said yes anyway. Love isn't perfect, but it's ours, and that's enough.